Hello, everyone. Welcome to the last episode, basically, of Mindblock Week. This is a Q&A discussion panel where we bring multiple guests from the week of Mindblock interviews together to expand on each other's points and answer any last questions as a way to wrap up the topic for the week. So in case you guys are new, this is an event here at OSU University, which is this improvement-focused OSU hub where our goal is to sort of bridge that gap between top players and the general community. So yeah, joining me today are three of the guests from this week, Bubbleman, Xilver, and GN. Hello, hello.
Hello.
Good to be back for one of these.
Yeah, let's go.
Yeah, hello.
So this is going to be a bit more freeform style as far as like topics. We're basically just going to bring up a couple points related to Mindblock and just sort of see where the discussion goes. And also, there's a live chat text thread in the OSU University Discord server. You guys can ask questions there, and we will try to use them to guide the conversation as best we can. So, yeah, let's get started. So before we started, I guess like a couple minutes ago, before we started the recording, we were talking about different World Cup tournament map pools. So, in regards to Mindblock specifically, do you have any points about that? And you can maybe also touch on the more recent trend of custom maps as well.
Custom maps are fun. I feel like from the Oh, sorry, were you saying something?
No.
Oh, I thought you were cutting out. Sorry. Yeah, I feel like from the discussion we were having just before the episode started,
Right.
interview, whatever. Any map pool map that I've like hard practiced, especially OWC, I tend to get really into the OWC map pools, and then after the fact, like after the match has happened, I completely cannot play them to save my life. I don't know what it is.
That's interesting.
Yeah, that's really interesting, actually.
I would almost think it's the opposite.
I just halve my performances on them.
Not a bad thing. I'm just like,
Right.
It
No.
never really happened to me before.
I mean, at least it's not the other way around, right?
Yeah, that's true.
But I mean,
Anyway, yeah,
I think
keep going.
thinking on about it, I think like what happens is in the moment and in the practice, I learn all the patterns and I learn how they go, and I actually do my research on the maps and stuff. So I've learned all the patterns almost by heart, and then I play it in the match, and then come maybe a month or two later, I've forgotten all of the pattern knowledge, like where every note is and how each pattern transitions into the next, but I still play it with the mindset that I know the map. So my brain is just completely in lazy reading mode, but mostly active thinking mode, if you know what I mean.
oh, that's fair.
If you've ever done that sort of thing before.
So basically, just you sort of forgot the map over time.
Yeah. And my brain, I still play as if I think I know the map.
Well, as far as like learning the map for the match itself, do you like sort of take? Oh, okay.
Going.
And this can be to anyone, but as far as actually practicing maps for map pools, do you take any precautions to make sure you don't get into a mind block on a certain map?
Do you want me to answer that?
Yeah. Anyone?
Yeah, sure. Well, I usually play a map like once or twice per pool. Like Nomad 1 through 6, I play it twice in a row because I like to be able to recognize the map more than rely on sight read, like chance for the most part.
Right.
But to prevent mind blocks, I mainly just, how do I say it? I'd say limit the number of times you play a map to like 2 or 3 times ish per pool. If you want to play it safe. In my case, however, I would kind of, if I'm really bad at a map, I would just accept the fact that I'm going to get mind blocked, and I'd rather learn it so I get better at it and fix the mind block as I receive it. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I wouldn't mind playing a map 10 times if that means I get slightly more confident at it. And if there's one part that I get mind blocked on, then I would just make sure my muscle memory fits it so I can adjust for the mind block. And
Yeah, that's a good point.
that's my preferred way. I think I touched on it in the interview we did a couple of days ago where people are really scared of getting mind blocked when in reality you can fix every mind block, like ever.
Right.
So that's my approach. I'd rather make sure I know the map well, and whatever mind block that comes my way, I can take the steps required to fix it.
Yeah. Sounds good. Jin or Bubbleman, do you have any points or your own perspectives on practicing maps for map pools without getting mind blocked?
Well, personally, I haven't really played any tournament pools in quite a while. And my problem was usually that I didn't practice the pool. I do remember the previous tournament I played. That was the Easy Mod Invitational.
Right. I was going to ask you about that. Right.
Yeah, those map pools were insanely hard because reading is very hard, and a lot of the maps practically required the memorization to be able to consistently get an FC. So you would have to practice like every day for a week.
In old map tournament, it was also flashlight as well. So
yeah, that's another thing. Like flashlight shows up sometimes in pools, and not a lot of people actually practice those. And those that practice, it usually gets banned against them.
That is true.
It's quite a dilemma for tournament players.
So regarding,
go ahead.
If you have something to add, because I was going to change the topic.
No. The way I usually go ahead on practicing map pool maps is I play through everything once in succession, all the way from No Mod 1 to Tiebreaker. And usually I don't play the Tiebreaker because I'm usually thinking either the match is gonna. I think either the match is gonna end before Tiebreaker, or if it gets there, then I'll probably lose it anyway. But
okay, sure. You know, if that works, go for it.
Yeah. If I run across something that I need to practice more than once, and this is directly before the match as well, is the best time to practice, I find. Directly before the match, if there's something I need to learn, I'll just make a note of it and then come back to it once I've ran through every map once. And it's almost a process of picking out parts of the map that are likely to be miss potential areas and remembering that they exist more than like learning them. Because the moment you start learning stuff is the moment you start gaining mind blocks. And it was an interesting discussion I wanted to bring up that I had with Mango Miser, who was on the Taiko World Cup team in 2020 with Team UK. It was him and Gohigi, and they were both top 50 Taiko players. They practiced possibly 6 hours a day on the map pool maps each round, so that, or at least for the final 2 rounds that they were playing, to make sure that they knew the maps that they were playing. And we had a bit of a talk about it over some food one day, and it was we kind of picked apart that you can learn VSRG's Taiko maps because they don't require aim. They don't require a second layer of reading. They just require, mechanical consistency of you tap this pattern, then you tap this pattern, then you tap this pattern, etc. That's why you can play them blindfolded.
I was gonna say if the same definition of mind block applies to like Taiko and Mania and the types.
I think you get over it very quickly because it's so much easier to get over it.
Yeah.
It's so much more difficult to learn blindfolded even an Osu map because of the aim requirement, because of the extra layer of reading. Because you've got 2 things you have to do to the rhythm. You have to aim to the rhythm and you have to tap to the rhythm, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Which means like you can mind block so much easier because there is so much more going on. It's the same learning a dance choreography. You can let these little habits creep in where you step just wrong and then you're off time a little bit for the rest of the measure, but you don't notice because you're so used to doing it and you have that muscle memory.
You know,
Whereas in
I
a
wish I had more
musical
music
performance,
experience. I wish I had more music experience where like if you play the guitar or the piano, if there's like
Mm.
similar things that overlap with each other. But maybe, I don't know. If someone has musical experience, I'd love to hear it.
I think because right, it's just like the whole playing blindfolded thing. You can close your eyes and play an instrument, right? So
yeah,
that
you
probably
can't
falls
really close
closer,
your eyes and
right?
dance.
Well, can you really? Maybe you
Well,
can.
no, because you need a sense of balance, which comes from your surroundings.
Oh, okay, that's right.
You would have to use some kind of internal compass or something to
Yeah,
really get
I'd still fall
blindfolded
over, I'm
dancing
pretty
down.
sure.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah, sounds really hard.
I have one last thing to say, I guess, about I remember when I first started playing tournaments. That was back in 2015, right? And I remember actually agreeing with the fact that okay, I only need one try to like be the best as I can on a map. But as the years went by, I felt like I needed to practice more and more in order to be more confident with a map. Now, I'm not sure the reason why that happened, but I do understand why some people like to only play a map once to not get mind blocked because it worked on me for a while. So nowadays, I just prefer to learn the map as best as I can, and whatever mind block comes my way, I fix it. But uh, if
think
playing a map once goes the better way for you, then yeah, feel free to do it because it has worked to me for me in the past. I just nowadays I wouldn't do it.
I think my theory as to why it happens, and this came up with the discussion with Mango again, is they switch from like active reading to passive reading really quickly, but they of course know what's coming next, right? They've almost memorized the chart and they can tap it as and when they need to. Whereas with us, with OSU players, because of that second layer of reading, it's 2-dimensional reading instead of 1-dimensional.
Yeah,
So, you know, it's a lot more difficult to subconsciously know what's coming next. It's essentially like learning every map with flashlight. Whereas with a Taiko player, maybe it'd take 10, 15 tries all the way through to learn it and be able to kind of predict what's coming next based on muscle memory. I don't know about you, GN, but it's a lot harder to learn something with the flashlight.
It's a lot more complicated. It doesn't really work that well.
But there's that transitional period between when you've started reading something, as in you're taking everything in as if you're reading it for the first time, and when you start to play off internal memory, where Taiko it happens, yeah, within maybe 15 tries, but with Osu, you hit the stage of 10, 15 tries, and you're playing off a mixture of seeing things and internal memory, and that's when mind block happens, right? I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure.
Right.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I agree. Yeah.
I do want to mention, I guess, like, do you guys see any distinction, or I guess, what are the distinctions between fully memorizing a map and fixing a mind block? Like, are those kind of similar, and in what ways?
Well, Bubble said something about recognizing miss spots in the map, and I do the same thing with whatever I struggle on in a map, right? You're able to put like a mental note in your head about, okay, I miss on that map in around that section, right? Like, I'm pretty sure like a lot of people are able to do that, right?
Right.
But if not, you can always teach yourself. Like, yeah, I miss on Nomad 1 in around the part before the first chorus or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And whatever that jump pattern comes, you just like get yourself to focus a little harder on the notes you do miss on, and sometimes that does help. But if it doesn't, then you're able to what I do at least is I see how I miss, and I'm able to adjust my muscle memory accordingly. Like if I over aim a certain jump pattern, then I make sure to move a little less with my pen or my mouse so I can overlap on the circle I miss on, right?
Right.
It's essentially adjusting your muscle memory to kind of compensate for the mind block.
Right. Like
basically.
forcing yourself to aim further or like less than you think
Yeah.
you need to, right?
Yeah.
I do want to add, personally, when I'm practicing for map pools, if I'm really trying to learn a map, I think one important thing to keep in mind is it's not necessarily always about improving your score, and sometimes it's just about like getting a realistic like expectation of how you're going to do in the match. And sometimes that does involve like picking out or like knowing exactly which patterns you only have like a 1% chance of actually hitting in the match. So let's say I've played a map 2 or 3 times and there's one pattern or like one type of pattern that keeps coming up throughout the map that I keep missing. And the way I see it is I could either just leave it alone and just pray that I get good RNG in the match, which I probably won't realistically, or I dedicate myself to trying to fix that mind block more or less, because either I don't spend time fixing it and I get RNG in the match, or I played a bunch, potentially risk mind blocking completely, but also potentially making it more likely that I do hit it in the match. So yeah, I think
would rather. I think we've talked about this. I would rather take the not relying on chance approach. That's me personally.
Right. I think I just want to emphasize that. Yeah, I think especially for tournament practice, if you think you're mind blocked on a pattern anyway, you might as well just take the time to try fixing it, because
Exactly.
it's
Yeah.
like it's either you don't fix it and you're mind blocked, or you try fixing it and you maybe remove the mind block, maybe don't, but either way, like the worst case scenario is pretty much the same either way. So
I'll be honest, I've never practiced a map. I've never played a map over and over and consistently gotten less confident with it. Like, at least in a tournament level.
right.
Like, the more I play a map, I get actually more confidence on it. Even if I get mind blocked, I know what's coming at me. Like, I'm putting less stress on myself to rely on luck to hit stuff. You know what I mean?
And you do also create more realistic expectations for how you'll do.
Exactly. Yeah. And
so
even if let's say the match happens and the mind block part comes in and I do miss, then it's like, okay, fine. I guess that's where my skill currently sits at. Let's work on it next time, right?
Right.
Like, I don't take it personally, because, well, if I was really confident or if I was really comfortable with that pattern, I probably would be fine hitting it normally without getting mind blocked, right?
Yeah, and that's actually a good point. I think like raising your skill cap is something that is very valuable for improving or fixing mind blocks as well. So
imagine, here's an example. Do you ever get mind blocked on like 3-star maps, 4-star maps? Like, no, right? Because they're really easy to play. You know what I mean? It's kind of the same thing.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Yes, I think it also goes for reading in general.
Yeah, can you elaborate on that, right?
Yeah, if you get better mechanics, then you're going to spend less brain power, like actually acting out the map, like mechanically. So you have more time to focus on actually reading the upcoming patterns and how you're currently playing, like checking your aim and making sure you're in the correct spots.
Yeah.
Like when your aim gets better, you can snap faster as well, usually. So you get even more time to just adjust and read.
I feel like a lot of people overrate reading to a certain extent. And don't get me wrong, reading is important, but I feel like if you have good enough mechanics, you can make up for a lack of reading on most maps, if not all of them.
Yeah, I think probably a good way to illustrate this is, for example, like basically just like being so much better at one skill that it makes you better at another. So space streams, for example, like really spaced streams. If you really have to focus on your tapping, like the stamina is a challenge for you, then you have much less energy to focus on aim, and so it's going to be a lot trickier to aim that stream as well. But if your tapping skill is much better to where stamina is not even something you're thinking about on that stream, then you can focus all of your attention on keeping your aim stable, and that will make your aim better on that stream, even though the only skill that really actually improved was your tapping stamina. So right, it's a similar concept here. If your mechanics are really, really good, then you won't have to spend any of your focus thinking about that. So you can focus a lot more of your attention on reading. I think that's what Jian was saying as well.
Yes. But yeah, it also kind of goes in the other direction, I feel, because if you have good enough reading for the map, but you don't have the mechanics to like play it properly, then you can kind of cheese it by using the timing window, like hitting certain notes too early,
That's
so you
true.
have
Oh
no
yeah.
time.
The
And
don't
it's
the
a very
don't
niche skill,
the
but it
don't
comes up
say
a lot in easy mode. Yeah, go ahead.
Was Xilver, were you saying something?
Oh, I always remember the GN's 2014 play on Don't Say Lazy with Easy, where the big overlap pattern,
Oh
the
yeah.
tag 2 diff, where it was just like all cheesing of that same part. And I remember watching it in 2014, like stunned. I had no idea how to do that.
Yeah, it's a good play.
Yeah.
It also came up in that Borusa Mikosu map where you had the
Oh yeah.
full screen
Mhm.
back and forth.
Yeah, the mountain thing. Yep.
Yeah, and some of the jumps are really fast, but you can kind of hit everything at a constant speed. So,
Yeah,
so the timing,
especially with Easy, you can kind of play around with the timing window.
yeah, on no mode it's much harder, but you can do it to a certain degree. Like your hits are going to be all over the hit error bar, and it looks really funny, but it feels very good to get it down.
Yeah, it's
I know
kind of
this
like
is
it's a skill of its own actually, like almost with double tapping. Could you link that video? Do you mean the Don't Say Lazy video? Sure, I can
Bubbleman,
find it.
did you have something you wanted to add?
yeah. I know this is propagating the wrong topic, but GN, remember the blue tack method
Oh yeah,
or Barrister back and forths? Did you ever try making your tablet area smaller on your screen so that you'd hit the edges of your tablet area and be on the circle?
I don't think I tried that, or at least I didn't have any success with it.
Did
They,
like neither you or Matham try that? Because I just had a brain blast and I might try it.
I know we discussed it at some point with Alex Diamond Fluxify.
Oh right,
I
yeah,
think he
yeah, yeah.
mentioned it. But like, yeah, cheesing on those jumps, and that's an art form, kind of.
Man.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, Xilver just linked the a video in the live chat, and those of you listening on YouTube, I'll have it in the description.
It's not necessarily linked to Mindblock, but I think
Right.
it's interesting.
I I do want to bring up the correlation between cheesing a pattern and fixing mind block on it, and this is something that Wowie kind of mentioned, where like you can like in trying to fix a mind block, you start by just being able to hit it like period, like no matter what, even if it involves cheesing, and then from there you basically use that as like a sense of confidence, like it is actually possible to hit this pattern, and that can sort of work towards alleviating mind block. But do you guys have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, the trick is to pretend you can do it until you don't have to pretend anymore.
I actually really like that. I've never thought of cheese it first and then hit it normally.
Oh yeah, I don't like to cheese.
Wait.
I wouldn't say cheese, but when you like just try your best to do it, even if you like you're
No,
really
dude, that's
bad.
a revelation. That's like, actually, you are. That's completely correct. Whoa.
Whoa.
Okay. Well, yeah,
Well,
we're learning as well.
I don't like to. I personally don't like to cheese, but that's because
Oh no, of course not.
yeah, I don't think an expert needs to rely on like breaking the game to perform well.
Oh
But
no.
um, what I meant about pretending is like, let's say you can't stream 200 BPM, for example, and you want to play like Blue Zenith, and you're trying your best to stream 200, but it's just not working out. Not cheesing, but just trying your best,
Right.
Eventually, when you keep at it, you're gonna get to a point where you don't really need to pretend anymore, and it just comes to you naturally. I feel the same.
Here is where I'd argue against you on that. Sorry.
Go for it.
Trying to pretend to do 200 BPM sort of entails mashing and trying your best to stream something you can't do. It's kind of like trying to pick up a weight you can't lift. you're either going to put your back out or you're going to hurt something just in general. And I think
would
it's the
say
same with
I would say if
streaming,
done
mashing 200.
if not done to an extreme level, I feel like it can help. Because I've never
I disagree.
I've
I
I've
think,
never well,
go on.
sure, that's fine. But I've never learned a skill by training another skill that's unrelated to that skill.
Right,
Personally,
but
right?
it's a linear scale. It's not like training a different skill. This is training too late of a skill. It's like picking up a hard technique before you master the basics, right? I think going in and learning 150 before you learn 200 is the way to go. So maybe Blue Zenith halftime. I suppose that is a form of pretending to do Blue Zenith, but at the same time, like, you know, pretending on streams entails mashing, entails like incorrect technique, which won't be buildable, if you know what I mean.
Here's what I'd say. I think when you start with incorrect technique, if you feel confident streaming, you can kind of adjust your technique to be more correct. Whereas if you started with 150, my experience, right? If you started with 150, you wouldn't have like experience with 200. So you wouldn't have the confidence required to fix it.
But then you'd have experience with correct technique, which you could build upon. Like in my
True.
in my career,
it goes both ways. It goes both ways. Like whatever way like works for each.
in my career, I gained speed. I got up to maybe 200 with correct technique, and then I started trying to push past that. But I was gaining real bad habits, in the sense of my hand would lock up. I'm sure I came to you asking, how do you stream? What's your technique like? Can you critique this, etc. And I'm sure I did at some point, because my hand was locking up. I was moving my wrist up and down to stream, as well as like moving my index finger. So it was almost like I'd tap with one finger, and then I'd move my entire wrist down because the rest of my hand was locked up together. And then I'd move my wrist up and tap with my index finger and move my entire hand down. And that got me, I don't know, just mashing that way. I got to a relatively fast speed, but it was, mashing. It was completely RNG over whether I'd hit a pattern or not, because I had no control over it. And then I went back to 150 BPM, and in fact, I went back to, I think, Membrane, and I played on Membrane for a bit, so that I was making sure I was pressing a key all the way down.
I do actually think going to like a really bad keyboard is like a good strat sometimes.
You have to commit to pressing the key, and that's where I think like that technique is what I've built upon now over the last few years, and it's pushed me far, far higher than that mashing technique ever could.
That's interesting. So I think going over the basics is always a good idea.
Yeah.
No matter what.
That's why I don't want to agree with pretending to stream a BPM, because it's like saying, hey, if you want to go get fast, go play image material.
I think it's a balance.
People will just mash image material.
It's a balance.
There was another thing like
I wouldn't 100% focus on the basics, but I would dedicate some time to pushing above my certain limits.
Absolutely push, but if you can't do 200, if it's not absolutely not in your skill range, don't play.
Don't forget the basics, but don't forget to push yourself at the same time. Mm-hmm. There's a balance. There's a sort of
another thing.
Yeah. I feel like we're not even
from
mind blocks, but yeah, go for
it. I might circle it back now, but from Woey from Time Rewinder, I think, said this. We as OC players learn to not miss. We don't learn to hit things correctly.
Yeah, that's fair.
What are people's thoughts on that?
Wise.
Lies?
Wise. WISE.
Okay.
Yeah, wise.
It doesn't really fit with my style of play, I think, because I just memorize everything.
I go against the exact opposite of that. I always focus on like hitting stuff properly, but that's because like it's how I like to play the game, right?
Yeah, but as
I'd say most players, they try their best not to miss and focus on accuracy later. Yeah, I know.
But that's why like you see so many people with subpar technique or lower accuracy, is just because They make sure they're hitting the notes and they make sure they don't miss when they get nervous, rather than allowing the miss to happen and oh, that's fine, it's whatever, play again. It's the idolization of a full combo in this game that makes people want to not miss rather than want to play properly.
Oh yeah. See, I even knew cheesing exists until like 2016. To be completely honest. No, I'm serious. So I would actually just
I
be
believe you.
really, yeah, I would be like really OCD about playing like everything correctly, right? So
Yeah, absolutely. And
it's
that's why you
kind
got
of,
so good so quick, probably.
I mean, yeah, maybe, but I guess that really never like it was never my style of play to just like cheese. So I guess I can't really give my opinion on it. So because I don't really have much experience. But yeah, keep going.
That was all I had on the topic, really. Of I suppose you can fix mind blocks by moving from playing everything properly to trying not to miss anything, or vice versa if you're going the other way. Like, if you approach a mind block pattern and you're trying not to miss that mind block pattern, it's, that viewpoint change to try and hit it properly. And miss if you're going to miss. It doesn't matter, because ultimately Habib
Yeah,
said at one
I think
point, you
I
have
agree
infinite
with you then.
retries.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you. I always try my best to hit everything properly because I just like I don't like watching my replay and seeing stuff cheesed because
Mm.
what expert would rely on something like that? Or
Yeah, I think
what
using
master would rely on something like that, you know?
yeah, I think using that paradigm of learn to play everything properly is definitely vital for improvement, because if you're learning to play things properly but then you're pushing on top of that, you're pushing in the correct way and you're going to get better. But then if you run up against a mind block pattern and there is no way around it, changing that mental paradigm to, okay, I just want to hit it, I just want to not miss. And again, in reverse, if you're approaching the game with the mindset of, okay, I'm on a good run, I want to not miss now, I don't want to miss, I don't want to drop my FC, I don't want to lose this prestige, changing it from that to, okay, I just want to play this pattern properly, and if I miss, so be it.
Yeah, I agree. It's it's definitely an idolization of an FC. Yeah, I agree.
Mm.
I feel like if you have to stress yourself so much to not miss, then you're probably not at a high enough level to get the score anyway. Is my take, right? If you have to stress yourself mentally that hard.
I don't know. I don't think it's like a mental stress to not miss. I think it's a habit that's built.
Maybe.
Just because of that constant FC idolization, you build that habit of being on a full combo, and if you then run up against a pattern, you kind of just make sure you hit the pattern so you keep your FC, rather than learning and playing that pattern properly and missing if you miss and hitting it if you hit it.
Yeah, it doesn't help
I think
that
a
the
lot of
game
players,
rewards you for
almost every
doing
player,
it.
I'd say, approaches the game like that.
Doesn't help that the game rewards you for, not playing it properly, but yeah.
I think you're one of the few players that actually takes that mindset from day one of playing everything properly, rather than letting those habits build of, if you're on an FC run, you keep that FC run at all costs, right?
Oh yeah, that's because I didn't even know cheesing was a thing.
Yeah.
So I'm just weird. Yeah, ignore me.
I think it's a sense of
That's interesting.
perfectionism. I think, like, you always want to play properly because that's how you actually play the game. Whereas if you want to learn something to to just be able to hit it, then your goal is to get a good score on that particular map.
Like, what's a good example?
Yeah.
The Deal with the Devil play, the FC, the by Badu, right? Like, don't get me wrong, that play is crazy, right? But I don't know. Like, it's nice.
Yeah.
It's nice that you can push cheesing to that degree, but I don't know. It's not what I looked up to when I first started playing the game, personally.
It gets to the top
mean,
of the leaderboard now, so
I respect it.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
respect it.
It's
But I wouldn't do it. I respect it, but I wouldn't do it personally.
goal oriented rather than improvement focused.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You're looking for the end goal if you do that rather than the improvement that comes with it.
Exactly.
I think the game traps you into doing that by offering you such high rewards for full combos. Everyone, I think, becomes goal oriented at some point. Really, really, really difficult to not have that happen.
Yeah.
I do want to bring up this question that came in from live chat, but do you guys have any last thoughts that you wanted to
No, you
shout
can go
out
ahead.
about that topic?
I think this was good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so question from Viper, who asks, can changing physical things like moving your keyboard or tablet help with Mindblock? / has that helped you in the past?
I have my tablet taped to my desk.
Yeah, who wants to
and
go first?
my keyboard has one comfortable position, so no, I can't exactly answer that. Sorry.
I change it to, like, if I don't feel comfortable with the way my keyboard or tablet are positioned, sometimes I change it around, but it never actually has helped me with a mind block, no. And even if it did, I wouldn't want to rely on it either way. So
I think it gives you a different kind of view on your aim if you move your
yeah,
tablet and stuff. So
Yeah,
you
it's-
focus more on the cursor and your hand movement. So I do it a couple of times each
I
session.
feel like, yeah, I think that sort of method is kind of a cheap way to approach it. I think I talked about it with Hypno during our interview. It's like flipping your monitor, like changing your area or whatever. I find that personally kind of cheap because you're not really solving the problem. You're just trying to escape it, relying on chance that you hit it rather than, actually sitting down and figuring it out. And I feel like that kind of falls into the same area of solving a mind block personally. But I mean, I know some people it helps them, but I personally just don't like to do that.
I do want to add that I think most commonly for me, if I'm finding that like I keep missing in the same way and moving my tablet is what fixes that, it's probably because, at least me personally, I don't have my tablet in the same spot or my keyboard in the same spot. Like I move my tablet to the side of my desk when I'm not playing, right? So most commonly that happens when, like, I guess early into a play session, and then I find that my tablet is just completely off of where I'm used to it being. Because I try to basically I line up my keyboard or my tablet with like the keys on my keyboard so that I have like a point of reference to, so it's around in the same spot. But usually if I do have to move my tablet to fix a mind block of sorts, it's probably just because my peripherals were in the wrong spot in the first place. So but that is definitely something you can mess with. And just like Bubbleman said, there's a lot of people that tape down their peripherals or like they put marks on their table for like exactly where they want their peripherals to be. So definitely
My
something
tablet has been
you
in
can
the same
experiment.
place since I bought this desk 18 months ago.
Wow.
And before that, it was in the same place after I moved to a different place for 3 years. So, yeah. I
Yeah.
can't...
Yeah, I don't blame you. The 480 has really bad feet. It just keeps moving around.
I also play full area, so...
Right.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. I kind of wanted to find a more elegant solution. Maybe use like Velcro or something like that.
That would
you
be
see, what I
cool.
wanted... I
Yeah,
wanted to route a hole into my desk that was...
Actually,
like deep enough but shallow enough so that the tablet would line up with the
that's
surface of my
smart.
desk. And then when I'm not using it, I just drag my mouse pad over it and I can just use it like a normal desk.
Yeah.
But that would need a 472, I think, because that doesn't have a 0.5 degree angle on it.
That would also need like a drill.
Alternatively,
and stuff like that.
you could just leave your mouse pad over it the whole time.
Yeah, well, there's a couple ways to get around that. Yeah. Oh yeah, that reminds me of Wolf UNONFC, where his tablet was having a joyride. I mean, yeah, it's not like you can't, like, stuff like tape isn't like required. You can get adjusted to whatever drift happens. Like, it's not that bad of an issue, I feel like.
Tablet drift, true. Pen
It's
drift.
true.
Tablet drift exists. There was one session after I just moved desks and I started playing an aim map. And when I finished the aim map, it was at least half a foot further away from me on my desk and rotated by 45 degrees.
Oh my god.
Although, if I can add one more thing, I think having your peripherals in the exact same spot doesn't actually matter too much, because you can get adjusted to it on a day-to-day basis. Like, seriously, if I place my tablet somewhere else, like, all I need is like 10 minutes and suddenly I'm fine playing it just as I would playing any other position, or the position I'm used to.
Right. You also have to line up your chair and things like that.
Yeah, it's there's so many variables that it's not worth it, and your body gets used to it quicker than you think, is what I found personally. But yeah.
Right.
When I first started playing with the tablet, I would play on a laptop and I would move my setup around all the time, and that included the tablet. And I would like sit on my bed and play.
Yeah,
play also,
I wouldn't have my tablet taped anyway. When I started playing.
yeah, and it would just move around all over the place, and I kind of learned to adjust to it pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And I remember one of my friends who played also. He was constantly complaining about his tablet moving, and he couldn't deal with it at all. So
I agree. I understand. But it's not that bad to mess you up, I think.
yeah, I
Even-
think you just have to get used to it.
Yeah, even on high levels of play, you can get used to it.
And as with all things, it definitely varies per person. So
Yeah, I guess.
never forget that.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, I do want to add, when I started playing, I didn't have space on my desk for my keyboard and my tablet. So I would put my tablet on my lap, on my legs, and I think I tapped with the space bar because I was only playing 2 stars at the time and 1-star maps. So that was my scuffed little early days setup.
Friend of mine, Blink, or also known as Doomsday is Bad, played with keyboard on his lap. That was fun.
Oh,
He was streaming, so he was hitting 300 BPM bursts on with his keyboard on his lap and his tablet on his desk. It was really funny.
it's
Sure.
a lesson in how the just minor things about your setup is not nearly as important as just raw skill, raw mechanics.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, I hope this relates to Mindblock in a certain way. I don't know if we got sidetracked a little bit, but yeah, it's up to you.
I think we're good. No,
Getting
we're
sidetracks is fun.
yeah, and that is true. I think at some point, especially those who have been listening to all of these interviews, I think at a certain point you learn all there is to know about Mindblock. So, but everything's
Feel free to ask us away if there's any questions that you want in particular answered about,
right.
Getting around Mindblocks and everything. Like, throw it at us. We're ready.
I do want to add that I think everything is interconnected in this game as well. So there's always something you can keep in mind. But okay,
Sure.
question that came in from Joanne in the live chat. What do you guys think about changing area slightly for Mindblock? I've seen Shige/CookieZ change area mid-map.
Oh, well, I've already answered about that, so you can
Right.
have others do the same. Like Bubble or
There's
GM.
a few interesting research topics or research papers that I found about. One was about changing versus, and this was sent to me by AJT if I remember correctly, but it was in research about changing versus keeping the same your tablet area. And it wasn't, of course, about OSU. It was just about the hand-eye coordination and how quickly you learn, essentially.
Is this
It was
wait?
kind of...
Can I ask? Is this the one about like shooting a basketball hoop from different distances?
No, I don't think
Okay.
it was.
Honestly, I would love.
You were given.
I would love a link to whatever article you were reading. I'd love to read that.
I would
actually.
love to. I'd love to find it. I really would. I read it so long ago. It was you were given, or participants were given a tablet, and they were given a screen, and you had to tap numbers that came up on the screen. It does sound like OSU, which is really interesting. Maybe they did use OSU for it, but
Maybe.
it was over a series of days. and there was a control group where the area on the tablet didn't change, and there was a change group where the tablet area shifted every day a certain amount and shrank and grew and changed location. And it was about getting used to that. And then they were put into a test where they were given the same setup, and the players or the participants who had their area changing constantly were best able to adjust, and they were, if I remember correctly, on average better than their the control group at the task they were given.
Right, that sounds
which is
right.
an interesting one.
Yeah, remember the tablet area randomizer?
Yeah, he
Tablet
literally
area
coded
randomizer
it.
is cool.
Yeah, I was the first one to implement that, actually, and I tried it for a while. And I set it up so it would randomize a couple of times per map, usually, for like every minute or 30 seconds or so.
Here's the thing.
I remember watching that.
I feel like you can fall into a trap where, okay, if I change my area mid-map or mid-session or whatever to hit a pattern a certain way, you can fall into like it's a slippery slope where like, okay, I gotta change it a little bit like this, and then another time like this, like this, like this, and you keep doing it obsessively almost, that you can't build upon a muscle memory. You know, it's really hard to do stuff like that without just falling into that slope where you constantly change your area without sticking to something for a decent amount of time. That's why I personally don't do it. You can do it maybe like, I don't know, once a month or once a week even, but doing it like constantly.
My experience with the randomizer was basically sometimes after you change something with the area, if it gets smaller or wider or something, you would tend to defer to muscle memory at some point, and it would just be completely off.
I think my own hypothesis reading that research paper I was talking about was that the people who had their areas change every day, and this was over a number of days, weeks, right? It wasn't just over one day and then the next day they were given the test. My hypothesis was that the players or the people who'd had their areas changed were relying on their reading and like processing to be able to move to the numbers and click on them, whereas the people who had the area the same every day, they were kind of relying a little more on muscle memory. So I think there is something to be said about you have to actively think when your area has changed, compared to if your area is staying the same, you don't have to actively think when you're moving your pen about, and that I think is the difference between the two, and I think is what they were researching. Actually, I'm honestly not sure. I don't know. It was so long ago that I need to find the article again. But
I think if you change your area a lot, you get this sense of cursor awareness.
Yeah,
that doesn't really build as well if you don't change it.
Yeah,
you get kind of mind blocked on. You get kind of mind blocked on your cursor. I think.
Yeah.
Like you kind of filter it out, and you just go by muscle memory a lot of the time.
Yeah, Jan said something about that with when you get used to a certain stimulus, your brain loses focus of it, and it becomes kind of blurry.
Yeah, that's the main function behind Mindblock.
That's kind of the thing. It's like when you get used to something, you don't focus at it. You don't focus on it as hard as you would when you're not used to it.
Yeah, that's why changing skins works. That's also why your reading gets a little bit of a buff if you change from mouse to tablet or the other way. I think because reading carries over between those input methods, you can kind of get a sense of where your reading's at by changing between the two. Even if on the one you're not used to, you kind of aren't playing as well on. It doesn't really matter too much, right?
Yeah. In either way, I still only like to do it every once in a while and not like obsessively every day, because like I said, you can enter that slope where you think, oh, area is everything, it's why like I can't do this because my area isn't like small or big enough, and I feel like that's kind of defeatist almost.
Yeah, I think I go into that kind of mindset sometimes, usually towards the end of my session when I get kind of
Yeah.
mentally tired. Or at
Yeah.
least it happens a lot easier then.
I've had the same area for 6 years now, and I don't want to think I'm hitting my mechanical limit, but because of how my hand ends up after every session I play aim, I think I am getting close to that mechanical limit with full area,
Interesting.
which is...
I don't have experience because
I don't-
I've never seriously played full area, so
I don't think so, but that's what it feels like because it's so difficult to push faster now.
I feel like it's a
I
placebo.
don't think so.
I
think
really
it is
think
placebo, but
I really think
Yeah.
it's like keyboard switches, right? Like people who play on heavier switches, they think, "Oh, this is my limit because the switch takes that much force out of me," and then they use lighter switches and they can't do anything. So I feel like it's placebo.
I think actually when you change your area, and I am curious to know if you guys sort of agree with this, but it basically resets your expectations of what you think is possible, which is sort of one way of resetting Mindblock in that sense, because I think Mindblock really stems from your own expectation of whether or not a pattern is doable for you, and or I think that that's really how like long-lasting mind blocks come to be. But once you reset your tablet area or change your tablet area or something like that, it also sort of resets your expectation because you're not sure exactly how you'll do on certain kinds of maps with that new area. So that could be one way.
I don't like to do that. I don't like to do that because it's escaping the problem. It's
Right.
relying on chance. Cause yeah, I don't know. I just don't feel like a master would need to use such a roundabout method to achieve like a play he wants.
Right.
You know what I mean?
And not to say that it's, the what you're supposed to do to fix mind block, but would you sort of say that that is something that, like, I don't know, makes sense that it would happen?
It makes sense and it works for some people. It works for me too. I just prefer to not do that personally.
Right. Okay, I see. Yeah, I think more or less if I can sum up the discussion that just happened.
I remember having a talk with Idki back in the OSU event about that same area, not tablet area, but that same like subject. And he was like, "Yeah, I never change my skin ever because I'm already used to my skin." And Toy was like, "Sometimes changing skin can help you like reset your reading on a certain map or so." And Idki was like, "Yeah, no, screw that. That's weird, right?" So like
that's just arrogant.
I don't know if it's arrogance. I feel like it's actually
I think
like
that's just arrogance.
the best way forward for him.
Right. And
personally,
it's very individual, I think. But
yeah, it is individual.
I remember,
And I found that pretty interesting. Yeah.
right, that there was a skin that Toy used for like a couple of years, and then he changed it one day, and I asked him like, "Oh, Toy, why'd you change your skin?" And I think he just said like, I like started getting too used to it or something like that. So just changing it up, and that also goes back to GN's point about getting too used to the stimulus, right? So yeah, but I did want to sort of try wrapping up that discussion as basically like mechanical mind blocks rather than necessarily being about reading.
Yeah. I remember saying most mind blocks are just mechanical misalignments with your hands. So if you can find out the misalignment and adjust it accordingly, you can solve every mind block. I remember playing Big Black, right? So there's the meme slider patterns at the beginning, right? Whatever you over aim or under aim on, you can look how you miss, and you can adjust your cursor movement per slider you miss on.
Yeah, if you get a consistent sort of mistake, you can make a plan for specifically that.
Exactly.
Right. Like if you're always aiming a little to the left on a circle, then just force yourself to hit a little right, a little further right. So
yeah, just I've pretty much got to head off now. But just before I go, I want to drop the other. I did mention I read two. Interesting.
Yeah. Go for it.
The second one was about changes in tablet area in the X direction and the Y direction. And it's summed up to basically be any change in the X direction is much harder to get used to than changes in the Y direction. The hypothesis behind that was that the X-axis on your tablet is the same direction as the X-axis on your monitor, where you're moving side to side, left to right, and on the monitor you're moving left to right, side to side, right? The Y-axis, however, on your tablet, moving forwards and backwards, whereas on your monitor it's up and down, so it's easier to get used to. So changes in tablet area in the X direction, and this is non-force proportions. I mean, if you make your tablet area taller or shorter, it's much easier to get used to that than it is to get used to making your tablet area wider or thinner. And that was really interesting, really interesting to me, because I'd never thought about the paradigm of your monitors at a rotated axis, and it lies on basically the X and the Z axis rather than the X and the Y axis that your tablet's on.
I'd love to read that.
Yeah, there you go. That's an interesting one. I could find that again for you if you want.
Yeah,
I think I have it downloaded.
I'd love to find it. Is that like an OSU specific research, or is it just like?
Nope, it was done in 2002.
Okay, yeah.
Oh.
So that's interesting. Very interesting, actually. I didn't even know tablets or like graphic tablets existed that year. Maybe they did.
But yeah, there you go. If you're going to make changes to tablet area, then, and I was absolutely against against non-force proportions before this, but after reading that tablet,
No, I actually think not forcing is probably better off long term. Because
yeah,
not because of
yeah, I'll leave it there. I've got to hop out.
Yeah,
'cause
okay.
I'm late for a tournament.
Good luck in your match, Bubbleman. Thanks for being
Thank you.
here.
Good chat.
And,
I love this.
Talk to you later.
Yeah, later.
Hopefully.
No.
As I was saying, I thought keeping force proportion off is not better because not force proportions is better, but it's because you can customize your area better, or you have more areas to customize it
Right.
rather than sticking it on one ratio. But
Right. Like more
really,
options.
yeah, but honestly, like whatever difference it does make, I remember saying the same thing. It's like it's so minuscule that it's not worth it.
Right. At the end of the day, it is a lot more about your, like, I guess, developing your skills rather than finding a setup that is perfect for you.
Yeah, like you're not, if you're not able to do a certain score, it's not because of like any peripheral or whatever. It's because you're not good enough for that.
Right.
So, yeah, just always keep that in mind.
I do want to sort of throw out there that I think ultimately, like through all the discussions that we've had about Mindblock, is I think there are like a lot of different things that could be causing the issue. And I think so far throughout this week, we've done a really good job of exposing a lot of different ideas and potential things that you can try to maybe alleviate Mindblock and keep improving. But yeah, just a fair warning, just in case I haven't said it enough times, that we are not trying to suggest that any specific way of playing the game is correct or not correct. So, yeah, our goal here is really to show you what is possible for you to try for yourself, and yeah, see if it is a good fit for you or not. So
I feel like the best way forward, which is it's silly, right? Because we're like there's no best way, but I actually think like don't listen to videos and just think for yourself on the best way forward is probably what works best for you, because you can't really enter someone else's head and kind of like reverse engineer what they went through to fix it, but you can do it to yourself. And I feel like it puts less contradictions in your thought processes if you just go over it yourself and find your own solution rather than like listen to other people.
yep, agreed.
Yeah, I would say experimentation with just about
Yeah.
any aspect of the game is absolutely key to
Like
getting an
don't-
understanding
yeah.
of how it works.
And when I mean experimentation, it's not like watching videos and experimenting that. Just like thinking about stuff yourself is
Yeah.
probably like what works best for you.
Actually
going forward.
testing things out. That's
Testing
really
things
important.
out yourself. Yep, agreed.
Right, and those of you listening who didn't catch Xilver's interview, which was a couple days ago, I think we definitely went a bit in depth on that as well. So you can
Watch
check that
my
out.
interview. Give
Yeah.
me money.
Yeah, I think you guys should check out all the interviews. I would say they're all very valuable. But yeah, I think if unless you guys have any major points or bits that you wanted to throw out there or start talking about, but can start thinking about wrapping up somewhat soon.
I don't have a lot more to add, so if y'all have more questions, feel free to send them, and me and Jan will try to answer them.
I didn't really have a point with it, but regarding the forced proportions and tablet area stuff, I did try out a function in the randomizer where it would just randomize completely independently from the proportions you set up to begin with. So it would just give you a random proportion every time. And that was completely impossible to play with.
Oh yeah, 100%.
It actually fried your brain if you tried it.
Yeah, you're not on stuff like changing you need like a good week to like get adjusted to it. I found.
Yeah.
Like that's not something you can get used to in like a minute.
Yeah, changing proportions specifically, that's super hard to deal with. Like when I tried with just forcing proportions or using the same proportions as I'm used to, it would be much easier to adjust because you kind of just adjusted the speed of your hand.
Frankly, I feel like every setup has strengths and weaknesses, and they all balance out in the end. So whatever advantages your current setup offers, if you change to a different setup, you're gonna find other weaknesses that you haven't realized yet because you haven't used it. So it's kind of not worth it to rely on changing your area expecting to be better, because you're gonna run into strengths and weaknesses no matter what playstyle or setup you use. It doesn't matter what. So your best way is probably to just get used to whatever weaknesses you're already used to, rather than thinking, oh, if I do this I'll get better, if I do that I'll get better. You know what I mean?
Well, I would say actually experimenting a bit with it, so you actually get to see what your weaknesses are.
Oh yeah, but that's when you figure them out is when you should, stick to one thing. Like when you start out,
yeah, I guess so. When you get an actual sense for how it works, then
it takes about like a year-ish plus of playing, I feel like, maybe. Yeah. Anything else?
Yeah.
Sounds good. And I do also want to mention that this is surely not the last time that you guys will see Xilver or GN here, hopefully.
You won't get rid of me that easily.
But yeah, you may see them in maybe future interviews or other content that we do here at OC University. So don't be afraid. But I much appreciate the insights that you guys brought throughout the week, and of course Bubbleman and Wowie as well, although they could not be here to the end.
Return.
But yeah, I want to thank everyone for listening. Those of you listening live, you guys are awesome. If you're listening on YouTube or Spotify, the best way to get directly involved with these interviews or OC University in general is to join our Discord server. And again, if you want to support the content, the best thing you can do is to just share it with anyone you think might appreciate it. And of course, all the typical self-explanatory YouTube algorithm-friendly activities.
Smash that bell. If we hit 20,000 likes, I will take my shirt off on stream.
And I'll watch.
Please, I need money.
Okay. That is going to do it for this interview week topic of Mindblock. The next interview week series is going to be focused on high AR. So if you're listening to this in the future, if you want to check that out, definitely go to the OC University YouTube channel / join our Discord if you're listening to this relatively soon after it comes out, so you can get involved. But yeah, thanks everyone for listening. Thanks again to all the people who did interviews. Xilver GN.
Thanks for having me.
Nice. Thanks for putting me on.
Yeah, of course. And those of you listening live or not live, we'll see you guys next time. Bye.
Bye.
Smash that like button. Did you know only 5%? Did you know only 5% of you are subscribed? Please, guys, I need money. Smash it.